Are you in your 30s? Do you have crippling student loan debt? Are you afraid that you're gonna be stuck in an overpriced rental for the rest of your life? Then this video is for you. Hi, welcome to Angel's Anything Show. And today we're going to talk about a topic that's on every aging millennial's mind: your future. Okay, well that's a bit triggering. What I mean by your future is your future residence. And I don't mean an apartment with a random Craigslist roommate who secretly collects your toe clippings at night to turn you into a voodoo doll. I mean a very own house of your own that you pay a mortgage on every month. You might be thinking, but Angela, I can hardly even afford to wipe my own ass. How will I ever be able to own a home? Well, that's what we're gonna talk about. When me and my boyfriend first bought our home late last year, the reaction from a lot of my friends was, how the hell did you afford that? Without getting too personal, not like I ever really mind being too personal. Horrible cramps. Bleeding from my vagina. Me and Dan's combined student loan debt is about $100,000, which is basically the same as our annual salaries combined. Sidebar, it's crazy to me that with a combined annual salary of $100K, it's still nearly impossible to pay all your bills and still have money left over and actually live a life, let alone bring another child into the world. Fucking insane. Hashtag make America great again. So between paying rent, paying for our cars, paying for our student loans, paying for fish concerts, and just the day-to-day crap, our debt-to-income ratio wasn't the best. So how did we do it? Well, for one, we believed that we could. Well, actually, Dan believed that we could. I'm a pretty negative person and actually doubted the entire process up until we had the keys in our hand. But before we take a real deep dive into the home buying process, that'd be my first tip. Believe in yourself. Because if a couple lowlights like us can do it, you totally can do it. Once you've decided that you're gonna buy a house, the next thing to do is find a bank that does mortgage lending. We went with a smaller, local, trusted credit union, but do your own research, and then make an appointment with the mortgage specialist there. At that appointment, you're gonna go over all of your financials, figure out how much you actually are willing to spend each month after, taxes and utilities and all that jazz. Then the specialist will determine how much you're pre-approved for, which means how much money the bank is willing to loan you to buy the house. I personally found this part to be the most nerve-wracking because I was just waiting for them to look at our financials and laugh us out of the office. But apparently we're not even in that bad of a situation, and there are people that are doing way worse than us. So always good to look for that silver lining. Once you get your pre-approval amount, your mortgage specialist should discuss different payment options with you. Turns out there's a ton of government and statewide programs that are designed to help out debt-saddled first-time homebuyers. Us. The most common government ones are an FHA loan, a USDA loan, a VA loan for veterans. I'm not going to go into what each grant or program does, so just check the description box below and I'll have some links there for you. And to check out all the statewide options, go to hud.gov. The program that Dan and I utilized was the Purchase Now, No Down Payment program, which allows first-time home buyers with a credit score of 720 or above to buy a house without putting any money down. So for any of my friends wondering, how the hell did we buy a house? This is the answer. We did not put a down payment down. We also qualified for the Home Buyer Tax Credit Program, which is New Hampshire specific, but I'm sure they have other things like this in other states, which basically means you get up to $2,000 every tax season for the remainder of your mortgage. So those are the main things that you're gonna wanna do when you're first starting to buy a house. So now we're gonna move on to some of the more out-of-the-box ideas. You could add people to the mortgage. No, I don't mean some random guy in the street, but perhaps a trusted sibling that you've talked about home buying with. Maybe you're ready to take your relationship to the next level and you want to get a mortgage with your boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe your grandma needs somewhere to live and you're trying to get in on that inheritance. Now, I'm not saying that you should buy a house with your girlfriend or boyfriend just because they have a better salary than you. Well, actually that's not a bad idea. You could also become a landlord. Now, this is obviously more of a commitment and a little more intense than just buying a small home for yourself, but it's definitely a viable option for some people. I don't know all of the logistics that go into it, but essentially the idea would be you buy a two-family home, rent out one of the units to somebody, and then their rent money will help you pay for your mortgage. And maybe you'd even make some money on it. Of course, you'd also have to help them unclog their poopy toilet at 4 a.m., so, you want to consider this before you go down that road. Some other tips to keep in mind. Remember, this is just your starter house. If it's not in the perfect location or the perfect size or, has the perfect whatever, that's fine. You're gonna improve it as the years go on, and then hopefully you can sell it, make some money, and then upgrade. So don't get stuck in this idea of your dream home. That's gonna take some time. My other tip would be to be realistic about what you can afford. Just because you're pre-approved for a certain amount doesn't mean that you can actually afford that amount. And your mortgage specialist should definitely be able to work with you to figure out a number that's comfortable for you to pay all in each month. It's definitely better to have a house that you can improve upon as you go, rather than buying something at the top of your budget, being house poor, and then never being able to do anything fun, you know, because you have no money. And finally, location, location. A big part of why Dan and I were able to afford our house is because we live in a relatively inexpensive part of New England. Of course, not everybody can do this, but if you have the flexibility to move somewhere where homes cost less, but still be close enough to work, your friends and family, Chipotle, then that'll give you more options when you're looking to buy. So hopefully if you've made it this far in the video, that means you've learned something. Or maybe you're still waiting for me to say something useful. Well, I'm all out of ideas, so sorry to disappoint you. But even if none of these options are gonna work for you right now, my biggest piece of advice would be just start saving. Even if you can only afford to save $5 a week, at least mentally you're gonna know, I'm working towards this goal, it's something I can do, it's feasible, I just need to create a little bit of a nest egg. Because even without a down payment, you still pay closing costs, home inspections, it's an expensive process, but it's one that you can totally do. I never thought I could. And I'm recording this right now in our new office space in our house, so it can be done, trust. Anyway, that's all I got, folks, enough ranting. Thank you for watching this episode of Angel's Anything Show, and I'll see you next time, goodbye. Shit, Scott. And not mofo mess with my lady. Got to run a cold up downsized head, you know what I'm saying?